Hey everyone. Okay, so first off, let's talk about the two major things that happened at the end of this chapter, which is Luffy supposedly ending up incapacitated to an extent aboard a Navy ship, and also that someone destroyed the Navy vessels that Kizaru and J. Garcia sent out of the evacuation ship. Now, I want to focus in on that second event because right now my mind is going in one of two places. The first is that we may very well get that long-awaited father-son meeting we've been waiting for, as I'm almost 70 to 75% in the camp of believing that the one who destroyed those naval vessels is Dragon and the Revolutionary Army. And considering what we know about the history that Dragon and Vegapunk share, it would almost kind of make some semblance of sense for it to be Dragon, given both of their connection to Kuma. Now, and especially considering that I'm sure that in some way that Dragon did eventually learn everything he knew about what happened to Kuma just from Kuma himself. And honestly, it would also make sense in the vein of it being Dragon, since this whole situation would be kind of right up his alley of just the perfect opportunity to kind of deal a massive blow to the government, even if it might be a little bit more reckless than what we're used to expecting from Dragon, considering how methodical and calculating he is. And honestly, it would also be the best way to tie into what happened to Luffy at the end of this chapter, as despite the father-son relationship being a little complicated between Dragon and Luffy, neither one having fully met the other, we know that Dragon does seem to genuinely care about his son to some extent, even if he doesn't show it. Now, so yeah, ultimately, everything in my opinion is kind of pointing to Dragon being the one who probably took down those naval ships. Now, the other option is that this could also be Shanks, considering the man's been on the move considering how on the move the man has been as of late. The only thing that prevents me from fully believing it's Shanks, though, is he kind of seems to be doing this his own thing, separate from Luffy, especially now that he's also pursuing the One Piece. So there might be a bit of conflicting feelings there, unless Shanks decides in order to use this whole thing as an opportunity to save Luffy for the purpose of making his intentions known that yes, he is one of the people throwing himself into the race to find the One Piece, and he's just doing this whole thing out of respect, possibly. But again, it's I don't know how much I can personally believe it's Shanks. I'm still much more in the camp of it being Dragon, honestly, than Shanks, if I'm being honest. Even how likely it could be Shanks. Now, with that said, let's talk a little bit about the Buster Call situation itself, because one little parallel I really liked that you could tell Oda was leading into with this chapter was giving us Vegapunk's perspective in a similar way to how we got Robin's perspective, seeing Ohara destroyed by the Buster Call, and now it's the same deal with Vegapunk and Egghead, despite Egghead probably being smaller scale than Ohara, it's still that same kind of viewpoint of seeing everything you love, everything you've worked hard to achieve, go up in flames. Vegapunk in this moment, I think, is finally understanding what the true horrors of the Buster Call are, and wondering in some small way, kind of wondering what Clover and the others must have felt in that situation, and the realization that it truly is a tale as old as time. Humanity will always destroy what we're most afraid of. The unknown factors we just don't understand, or do we even want to understand, and just destroy what we don't. It's kind of just be like that in a lot of ways. I also really like how, but even more than that, I also really like how even in this moment, even when faced with the destruction of Egghead, I also really like how Vegapunk does acknowledge his greatest fear about the pacifistas has in some degree come true, in a sense where even though Kuma himself saved her, by that same token, the very pacifistas he created from Kuma's likeness are attacking Bonnie, and that was his greatest fear about Bonnie ever becoming a pirate, is that one day he would face down the wrath of those pacifistas who he created with their father's likeness. And And now that kind of has become a reality. But with that said, let's talk about Kizaru again, because with each new chapter, the guy becomes more and more of an unknown quantity, with the only big thing that stuck out about him to me in this chapter is the way that whole conversation was framed about himself and Jay Garcia staying behind really does kind of point in the direction to me that he's kind of scheming to make sure Jay Garcia goes down with the island, which in itself makes me think Kizaru is willing to maybe sacrifice himself to make sure this whole saga ends, or maybe possibly he'll escape and just kind of rework all the like, and just kind of twist the facts around just to make sure he remains clean. I don't know. Like, it feels like Kizaru is gonna be. It's one way or another. Kizaru is gonna be the one to make sure that Jay Garcia dies now, and honestly, in either case, if this is the route Oda's going with it, then I think it's the only reasonable route to go at this point. But simultaneous to that, it's leaving me with really weird feelings about Kizaru, as it feels like he's a character we never really got to understand. Like, even in the flashbacks with Vegapunk, he always seemed to be just so aloof, just kind of doing his job, not really caring about one thing or the other. So it's like, and never really understanding his intent behind anything he ever did. That was always the one thing about his character that just kind of intrigued me, but also just confused me as well. That was like, and don't get, like, in a way that it does fit who he is as a character, but it's also like, it's one of those things that makes you wonder, was Kizaru always meant to be that kind of character? Was he meant to be the character we were never really meant to fully understand, to fully know who he was? He's always just been the aloof admiral who followed orders, and now this is the one time where he's choosing the opposite route of choosing to defy orders and actually even commit treason against the government by possibly killing one of the Elder Stars. Like, it's just one of those things where Oda is making me wonder more and more about just who the character of Kizaru really was. And yeah, like, if this is the route he's going, I'm still for it. It's just like, it feels like we only ever really got to know so much about Kizaru himself. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, Analyst Crunchyroll. Be sure notification bell, hit the subscribe button, and just share the video around, guys. Dark Knight of N signing off. Later, everyone.